Ladies and gents, welcome to UX, and this is Poland sends 40,000 troops to Belarus border as tension explodes. What? This is by the channel The Military Show. Now I get it, this channel could have sometimes clickbaity titles, but there has to be something to this. 40,000 troops, so shit is going down, is that what's happening? Because I thought they were Article 4, so they were talk about it, they actually sends troops. I mean, I wouldn't blame Poland because Poland's seen shit, let's just say. So I don't know, let's watch this video, it's gonna be something.
Military exercises between Russia and Belarus are in progress near Poland. Russian drones are flying into Polish airspace, forcing the country to shoot down assets in what can only be called Russia's boldest attack on a NATO ally to date. The security situation in Europe is degrading and Poland has had enough. It's time to take action. As tensions reach their breaking point, Poland sends 40,000 troops to the Belarus border to send a clear message. Poland isn't scared of opposing Vladimir Putin. On September 11th, TVP World reported that Poland deployed 40,000 of its soldiers to the border it shares with Russia's ally, Belarus. While a boost in troop numbers was expected, given that Belarus and Russia are engaged in military exercises far too close to Poland for comfort, the sheer numbers of soldiers that Poland has deployed will raise some eyebrows. However, Poland has two very good reasons for this deployment. The first is a series of military exercises we just mentioned. Periodically, Russia and Belarus will hold joint military drills under the Zapad name. As Defense News reports, the last three series of exercises took place in 2022, which is uncoincidentally the same year that Russia invaded Ukraine. 3 years later, Zapad 2025 is set to take place on September 12th and will run until September 16th. Russia and Belarus will commit thousands of troops between them to a series of exercises that will see the soldiers simulate how they would repel an incoming attack. It's believed that Zapad 2025 will involve drills on how to conduct airstrikes and sabotage operations, and it'll be taking place close to the border Poland shares with Belarus. How many soldiers will be involved in Zapad 2025 is up for debate. When the exercises were first announced in February, Belarus claimed they would involve 13,000 troops, in what was clearly an attempt to project.
I mean, look man, you fooled me once, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? So yeah, Poland would basically, whenever this type of exercise is happening, Poland would okay, I'm gonna send troops at the border, I'm gonna take this risk. Because before Ukraine thing, they were building tents, building structures, and people oh, nothing's gonna happen, they're just doing exercise. And then special military operation. Poland cannot be caught off guard like that. If it happens, which I don't think it would, but if it happens, who knows?
Power to the West. Since then, Putin has managed to slightly thaw Russia's relationship with the United States, and talks related to peace in Ukraine are ongoing. Accordingly, Belarus now claims that about half of the originally announced numbers will be taking part, with the exercises also taking place deeper in Belarus than originally claimed. Except the last part seems to be a partial lie. In August, Belarusian Defense Minister Viktor Krenin noted that most of the exercises will take place about 46 miles northeast of Belarus's capital city of Minsk. However, he added that some small units will carry out practical tasks to repel a hypothetical enemy, much closer to the borders that Belarus shares with Poland and Lithuania. It's these exercises that concern Poland, both because of the simple fact that they're happening, and because the exercises could provide Russia with a smokescreen that hides hybrid warfare activity on the border. Poland has been preparing to counter Zapad 2025 since it was announced. The country's Deputy Defense Minister, Cezary Tomczyk, says, Poland has been preparing for the Zapad 2025 maneuvers for many months. The Polish army has conducted exercises in which over 30,000 Polish soldiers, as well as soldiers of the NATO alliance, took part in order to adequately respond. Tomczyk wraps up with a warning. Let's remember that Zapad 2025 is an offensive exercise. The deployment of 40,000 of Poland's soldiers shows that the country is serious. Presumably, many of those deployed will have taken part in the exercises that the Polish army conducted in the build-up to Zapad 2025. If anything gets out of hand with the Russian and Belarusian troops operating near Poland's border, those soldiers are ready and know precisely what they need to do to deal with the problem. 2 days prior to the announcement of this heavy troop deployment, the Kyiv Independent reported that Poland has another plan to guard itself against Zapad 2025. The country will close its border to Belarus at midnight on September 11th, likely until Zapad 2025 ends 5 days later. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced that...
I mean, yeah. Oh, this is Zapad 2025. It's an exercise. Whoops, we just entered Poland. Whoops, we just attacked Poland. They can't be caught off guard like that. We're gonna close the border, obviously.
Move to his country's government, placing the blame for his decisions squarely on Zapad 2025. On Friday, Russian-Belarusian maneuvers, very aggressive from a military doctrine perspective, begin in Belarus, very close to the Polish border, Tusk said. Therefore, for national security reasons, we will close the border with Belarus, including railway crossings, in connection with the Zapad maneuvers on Thursday at midnight. Poland is taking this joint exercise very seriously. Still, a joint Russian and Belarusian military exercise alone isn't enough for such a drastic troop deployment. Sure, parts of the exercise are taking place close to the Polish border, but if Belarus is to be believed, there will be nowhere near enough Russian and Belarusian soldiers taking part to present a real threat to the 40,000 Polish soldiers. Something else is going on here. Or more accurately, something else has happened that has caused tensions to explode in this vital border region. Russia just attacked Poland with drones. On September 10th, Poland announced that it had been forced to shoot down several Russian drones that violated its airspace during a Russian attack on neighboring Ukraine. The situation brings us the closest we've been to open conflict since World War II, Tusk said in the aftermath of the Polish response, and he isn't being hyperbolic. Poland called on help from its NATO allies to take out the Russian drones, NBC reports, and the incident drew widespread condemnation from European leaders. You can check out our detailed video covering the entire incident to learn more. Russia, of course, tried to claim that it was all an accident. The Guardian reports that Russia has been trying to play this off as a strike against Ukraine that went awry. There have been mentions of Russia's drones simply veering off course, leading them to entering Polish airspace. Russia has also suggested that there is no evidence that the drones Poland was forced to shoot down originate from Russia, meaning we're seeing the same old excuses from Russia as we always see. Lies, denial, attempts to maintain plausible deniability by using the Ukraine war as cover for an attack that was clearly designed to prod at one of NATO's most important members. Poland isn't buying any of it. The country's deputy prime minister and
Ukraine thing isn't a cover. Ukraine thing is one of the reasons why they're trying to prod Poland to see if they can do it. One of the arguments is Poland is where most of the weapons go into Ukraine, that NATO and everybody who supports Ukraine sends weapons through Poland. So that's why Poland is targeted in the first place.
Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski has categorically stated that Russia's drones didn't veer off course. They arrived precisely where they were supposed to arrive, and even managed to cause some property damage along the way. Fortunately, nobody was injured, Sikorski said, though the entire strike was labeled as an example of Russia's aggression spreading beyond Ukraine, even though the Russian Federation isn't at war with NATO. Sikorski also sent a message to Putin. Poland, the EU and NATO will not be intimidated, and we will continue to stand by the brave people of Ukraine. It's time for the leadership of Russia to understand that the attempt to rebuild Europe's last empire is doomed to fail. Sikorski has a very good reason to believe that Russia's claims of it not being involved are lies. The obvious reason is the contradiction that you may have already spotted. Russia has tried to claim that there is no evidence that the drones Poland shot down came from Russia, while also saying that the drones had veered off course. It can't be both. Either Russia sent drones that went the wrong way, arriving in Poland, or the drones didn't come from Russia. In the latter case, the implication seems to be that the drones might have come from Ukraine, though there is no reason for Ukraine to be sending drones in Poland's direction, even if Ukraine...
Alright, I didn't attack anyone, but if I did attack someone, you have no proof of that I attacked that particular person. Okay, make up your mind. This is tactics, obviously, everybody uses that, oh, give me the proof. India-Pakistan thing had that, oh, give me the proof, people were battling out in social media. Pakistan was making shit up. So yeah, this just makes sense.
Drones were sent off course, they would have been heading in the opposite direction to Poland, and could potentially have hundreds of miles to travel to accidentally cross the border. The reality is that the entire incident is what it appears to be, a Russian drone strike on Poland. And according to the new Voice of Ukraine, there is now tangible evidence to support that fact. On September 10th, the outlet reported that Russia has started to equip its Gebera drones, which are based on the Iranian Shahid designs, with extra fuel tanks intended to extend the drone's flight range. The single fuel tank on the Gebera's tail has now been joined by a second tank built into the drone's nose, the outlet claims, while offering photographic evidence of the modification. The obvious question has to be asked, why more fuel? After all, Russia has shown several times that it can strike anywhere inside Ukraine with Gebera drones, meaning it doesn't need to spend more money on fuel and extra storage to hit Ukraine. The only reason those drones need more fuel is that Russia wants to send them further, say through Belarus and into Poland, just as it did on September 10th. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has his own theories about why Russia chose to attack Poland so directly. Euromaidan press reports that Zelensky has suggested that the attack was supposed to intimidate Poland into withdrawing any current or future air support it offers to Ukraine. Zelensky added that there are echoes of the annexation of Crimea in what Russia did. The most terrible thing is that this attack is psychologically similar to Crimea, Ukraine's president said, adding that drones have now replaced the little green men that wreaked havoc in Crimea both before and during the Russian invasion. Those little green men, who were people wearing military fatigues that bore no insignias or markings, offered Russia a way to be aggressive in Crimea while having some level of plausible deniability. Now drones are offering it the same while allowing Russia to show Poland that it can attack at any time. We already know that Poland...
Okay, what's with the little green? Why little though? Just green men. Why little green men? They were little.
...won't be intimidated. Sikorsky made that very clear. Still, Russia's brazen drone attack has given Poland another reason, beyond military exercises taking place near its border, to exercise caution. It's unknown what weapons the 40,000 soldiers will bring with them. Perhaps they'll have some form of portable air defenses that will allow them to shoot down any drones that accidentally cross the border while Russia and Belarus are simulating their supposed defense against incoming troops. Or maybe they'll simply serve as a warning, a riposte to Russia. You sent drones, so we're sending soldiers. The big question now is what happens next. We can likely rule out any direct fighting between Poland and the joint Russian and Belarusian forces taking part in Zapad 2025. On Russia's end, such a fight would be a bad idea, given that there will only be small pockets of its soldiers taking part in border exercises, at least if Belarus is to be believed. Zapad 2025 participants may venture close to the border, perhaps to see firsthand what defenses Poland has in place, but they're unlikely to cross. Poland, of course, isn't going to launch an invasion of Belarus that would trigger a war with Russia. As much as Putin might like that, as it would give him an excuse to launch a counterattack while claiming that NATO shouldn't get involved due to Poland attacking first. Putin wouldn't be lying. Russia's drones were first to attack, but Poland, much like the rest of NATO, is far more interested in defending against Russia than it is in attacking Russia. What we do know is that Russia's drones were intended to be a test of the NATO response to a direct, albeit small, attack on one of its members' territory. Zelensky made that point when talking about how Russia is trying to dissuade Poland from providing Ukraine with air defenses. And it's the sort of thing that matches Russia's modus operandi. This is a country that regularly flies fighter jets.
I mean, look, Zelensky saying that is not that far off. Of course, he would say that, and also that one of the Poland diplomats said, "Oh, this is like Russia is trying to test it. There is no error here. Drones didn't like mistakenly get into Poland. None of this is really proof. Of course, they would say that. So there's no hard, concrete proof yet. Like, was it a mistake? Or was it a deliberate thing? I guess we'll never know. But yeah, Russia could do this. That's the thing. We can just like process and like, yeah, Russia could do this. They could prod Poland to see like how NATO responds, what they would do. Would they go close to Article 5 or not? What would they talk because they invoke Article 4? They're going to talk it out. What would they going to talk? So there's many things like that.
Jets close to NATO airspace. In April, for instance, the BBC reported that Royal Air Force fighter jets had scrambled to guide Russian jets away from NATO airspace in 2 separate instances. There may also be occasions where Russia has sent ships into NATO waters. These little incursions aren't intended to be attacks, they're tests. Russia's way of poking and prodding at NATO to see what sort of response it gets. If all of this were a test, Russia is certainly learning what NATO members are willing to do to respond. Poland is sending 40,000 of its troops to the border with Belarus, but there are others who are getting involved. On September 11th, the BBC reported that other NATO members are preparing to send soldiers, air defense systems, and artillery to secure the eastern flank, which essentially means that NATO as a collective will be reinforcing Poland's border. Both the Czech Republic and the Netherlands have committed to sending more defenses to Poland. The latter will provide 300 soldiers along with artillery and air defense systems. The former is prepared to send 100 of its soldiers along with some helicopters. Germany
300 and 100?
Also says that it's sending an entire brigade to Lithuania, as the Baltic nation shares the same vulnerable border with Poland as Belarus. A trio of Rafale fighter jets is also heading into Poland, courtesy of France. There is also a suggestion that the UK will get involved, though nothing official has been announced yet. Any help from the US is uncertain, though. The US president has been uncharacteristically quiet about the drones that entered Poland, offering only a mute.
He wasn't quiet. Yeah, I saw the news where he said like, okay, everybody needs to stop buying oil. If I'm going to put sanctions on Russia type of way. If you do this, then I'm going to put sanctions type of thing. Knowing that they're not going to do that. So, yeah. It's like not much of an answer.
Statement on Truth Social. What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go. It's unclear if the "here we go" portion is an expression of exasperation or excitement, but the US hasn't offered much beyond this statement so far. Still, Poland is happy with the NATO response it's seeing. The country's defense minister, Władysław Kozyniak-Kamysz, addressed the Polish parliament stating, "Poland has repeatedly heard words of solidarity and empty gestures throughout its history. Today we have concrete declarations. Koziniak Kamish may be trying to evoke the memory of World War II, when Poland's allies stood by and watched as Nazis overran the country. While a handful of drones certainly isn't equivalent to a full invading force, Poland is suggesting that nobody can ignore the warning shot that Russia just delivered. NATO's European members are heeding Poland's call. The immediate response is encouraging. Poland's 40,000 troops and the defenses being supplied to the country by its NATO allies show that Putin can't push Poland around. But as Sky News said on September 10th, another potential response from Poland would see it trigger a more official NATO mechanism to respond to Russia's drones, triggering Article 4 of the NATO Charter. Note that we said Article 4, not Article 5. Under Article 5, all NATO allies are duty-bound to come to the defense of any other NATO ally that experiences an attack.
Yeah, there's no forceful mechanic as far as I remember in Article 5. Like, people can walk around, there's loopholes there. So when Article 5 times does come, it's going to be one of those things, right? Before 2022, people were afraid like any war would be nuclear war before Russia said fuck it and just started attacking Ukraine. Now again, Russia is not against nuclear power. Russia hasn't nuked anyone yet, so there is that. But that wasn't anything. But then India-Pakistan thing happened. Both have nukes. Nobody nuked anyone. So the nuclear threat is kind of becoming more and more loosened up. Like, nobody's going to use nuke. Even people attack each other, nobody's going to use nuke because why risk it? I think Article 5 is one of those things. When it happens, there's a higher chance a lot of countries will be like, yeah, I'm not going to follow through, or like walk around it, blame other people and not follow through it. Article 5 will fall apart as well. Like, yeah, NATO's just talk. That's one of the things.
On its sovereign soil. You could argue that Russia's drones constituted an attack strong enough to trigger Article 5, though Poland hasn't followed through with triggering that article, at least not yet. Article 4 is a less intense step. NATO says that under Article 4, any NATO member can bring an issue of concern, especially if it's related to the security of a member country, to the table so it can be discussed by all members of NATO. It's essentially a mechanism through which NATO members can say, here's what happened, so let's figure out what to do in response. Triggering Article 4 starts a consultation period, which can cover everything from the exchange of information and ideas to the formation of a joint plan on dealing with the issue raised. Triggering Article 4 essentially allows for the creation of an official response to an enemy's actions. So Poland has done what anybody would expect it to do. It's triggered Article 4. The official NATO website says, on 10th of September 2025, Poland requested to hold consultations in the North Atlantic Council under Article 4, following the violation of Polish airspace by multiple Russian drones. This marks only the 8th time that Article 4 has been triggered since NATO was formed in 1949. That should worry Putin. He doesn't know what's...
But then again, they also held it when Russia invaded Ukraine. So this is like second time in the past 2-3 years.
Sort of conversations are going on behind closed doors. NATO members who are now sending troops and equipment to Poland may be doing so after consulting with Poland to find out what it needs. A wider consultation, such as the type that takes place when Article 4 is triggered, could result in Poland's already strengthened border defenses receiving a serious shot in the arm. And it's not just NATO that is talking about Russia's drone incursion. On September 11th, The Guardian reported that an emergency session of the United Nations, or UN, Security Council is set to take place at Poland's request. That will likely see Poland try to rally more support for its cause.
UN, nothing's going to happen at UN. Come on, man.
This is an interesting move by Poland, because there is a permanent member of the UN Security Council that it would love to hear from, Russia. One of 5 permanent members, the others being the US, China, France, and the UK, Russia would find itself in the interesting position of having to justify or otherwise explain away the drones sent to Poland should this meeting be called. Russia's position as a permanent UN Security Council member also creates problems for Poland. As a permanent member, Russia can veto any resolutions made by the Council that it believes impact its national security or foreign policy. You can guarantee that Russia will use this veto to make any decisions that come out of the Council meeting that Poland wants worthless. But perhaps that isn't the point. Poland...
You know what's surprising to me? Why does Russia still have a permanent seat at UN? If everybody from West is opposed to Ukraine-Russia thing and condemns Russia, put million sanctions on them, why didn't they remove Russia from UN? Like, okay, you don't get to sit here and veto things since you're doing this shit. That's one thing I don't understand. America is very bold to blame India, or you buying oil, this and that. Trump, not America, because yeah, everybody else was kind of like, yeah, I'm glad India is buying oil, so it doesn't create a shortage at the global market. But Trump's like, oh, you buying oil. Okay, why is UN still keeping Russia as a permanent seat? Why are you still buying gas and like uranium? It's just weird.
May want the UN Security Council to meet because it wants to come face to face with Russia, showcasing the lack of intimidation that Russia's actions are supposed to inspire. How quickly any of this will happen isn't known. While some NATO members have been quick to offer their support, others in the alliance are urging caution in the collective's response to what's happening in Poland. One of them is NATO's Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, General Alexis Grinkovich. On September 11th, he said, "We do not yet know if this was an intentional act or an unintentional act," before adding that questions have to be asked of Poland's claim that Russia sent 19 drones into its territory. "I would not be able to tell you with any confidence today that it was 20 or that it was 10. We just have to get into the technical details to figure that out, to debrief the crews that were up to see what they saw." In other words, NATO is going to take its time. And that brings us back to Poland and its 40,000 soldiers. With Zapad 2025 beginning and Russian drones flying into its airspace, Poland is taking action while it waits for the NATO wheels to turn. It has to. It could be days or even weeks before a NATO investigation reveals what really happened with the drone strike. Poland wants to send a message long before then.
Okay, to summarize this, like because of the exercise, Poland is putting the troops there. That's about it. It doesn't matter what resolution come, Poland's not going to do anything with those 40,000 troops, let's be honest. So this whole 60-minute video, but the point is because of Zapad, or whatever it's called, because of that exercise, Poland is putting troops there, which makes sense. Poland can't be Ukraine. They went from exercise to invading Poland, which is like not going to happen. But who knows, in the end of the day, who knows who thinks what. So yeah, of course they're going to cut off the border and like put 40,000 troops there. It just makes sense. I was surprised that Poland like 40,000 troops because of the drones. Come on, that's amplifying, but no, that's not the case. Alright, well, that was Poland sends 40,000 troops to Belarus border by channel Military Show. If you like my reason, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.